Welcome to Empowered and Out, the LGBT plus career podcast, where we're all about empowering you to thrive as your authentic self in the workplace and beyond. I'm Jonathan Barbie, founder of JMB Coaching LLC, and in every episode, we'll dive into the unique challenges and triumphs that come with building a career for yourself and as an LGBT plus professional. Join us as we explore everything from finding purpose, landing a fulfilling job, to building confidence and resilience in the face of adversity. Whether you're navigating a career change, aiming for leadership, or just looking to create a work life where you can truly be yourself, this podcast is here to support you every step of the way. And then 1 to 2 episodes a month, I will be bringing an expert or experts in the coaching field and beyond to join me and share their expertise and see how you might possibly learn from them or even possibly hire them as your next coach. Get ready to be inspired because here, your success is our pride. Welcome to Empowered and Out. So this week's topic is going to go along with my guest, which is helping nurses find the job they love. So I want to give a big welcome to my guest, my friend Kristen Gutierrez, who is a registered nurse. Oh my goodness, I am just messing up every word. She is a registered nurse and career coach. So welcome, Kristen.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You are very welcome. It's been a while since we've actually chatted, but I'm very thankful that you accepted this invitation. I want to say I probably invited you, oh my goodness, like probably 3-4 months ago. I think it was when I first was kind of being tasked to do this podcast. And I was like, as any podcast, it took a little bit timing to get everything right. And of course we have the holidays. So that kind of throws everything into a wrench. But I'm here. I'm excited. I had the opportunity to actually get to know a little bit about you when we were at the conference that we went to last September. But I would love for you to share a little bit more about yourself and, why you're doing what you're doing as a coach. So
Yeah. I know it's been a while, since we talked at that conference, but, I know you had asked me to be on this podcast way before the holidays, and I always had it in the back of my mind. So really excited to be here.
awesome.
So I am a nurse career coach. I've been a nurse since 2007, and I have experience as a bedside nurse, clinical instructor, and also as a nurse manager. However, I think it was about 2021, I developed some weird symptoms, included major fatigue. I had trouble walking. I couldn't walk more than 50 feet at a time. And also had some trouble with my hands. And, I kind of thought this is weird. What's going on? So decided to go to the doctor, get it all checked out. And turns out I was diagnosed with these 2 rare neurological disorders. And ironically enough, neurology nursing is my specialty. I've worked it my entire life. So I thought, how is this even happening to me? And on top of that, being rare conditions that, I rarely saw as a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of like, oh my God, why me? I tried to stick it out at my job. I was working as a nurse manager at the time. And this was also during COVID. So, who knows or who knew what was going to happen with healthcare at the time. So I felt like I had to be there at the hospital all the time. I had to be there for my staff, had to really give it my all. And, just after, some time, maybe about a year and a half passed, I just totally burned out. I was physically exhausted. I was literally going to work, going home, eating, sleeping, taking a shower, going back to work again. It was just the same routine. And I, on top of my physical disabilities, like I was just physically done. Mentally, I thought like, oh my God, I'm still sharp as a tack. Like, what am I going to do now? I thought to myself, it's going to be really hard working in a hospital or a clinical setting just because, the physical demands of the job. But, like I could still use my brain somehow. So I started exploring, possibly remote jobs, work from home, but it just wasn't, something I was really passionate about, like doing chart audits or, reading doctor's notes, things like that. I wanted something more challenging. And I thought to myself, well, I have all this experience as a nurse manager. I really loved connecting with my staff and, I really loved helping them. And I thought, like, why don't I help nurses with their own careers? Um, you know, Post pandemic, we were facing a lot of burnout. A lot of my own staff were, looking for new positions, just something that would give them better work-life balance, less stress, and all the good things. So yeah, that's why I decided to become a nurse career coach.
I would think a job in itself, reading doctor's notes, would keep you very busy. I just my dad was an oral surgeon, and I can say, whew, his handwriting was awful. I am always in awe whenever I would see. I was like, wait, what does that say? So we were chatting about this off air before we came on. I had sent you some questions, just so our audience can, have an idea of, you gave a little bit of, kind of why you got into coaching. But how did you know, that this was the right, niche for you?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I knew nursing was my niche because I've always been passionate about it. But I think, when I thought to myself, like, okay, I'm still helping people. It's just not in the traditional sense that a nurse would. Instead, I'm helping nurses. I just felt really good about that. Like, I feel it in my heart. I actually have goosebumps talking about it right now because I'm so passionate about it. And, I think nurses and healthcare providers in general, we tend to put others' needs ahead of our own. And, we typically don't take care of ourselves. I think post pandemic, there was a big highlight on, burnout and mental health, putting those topics into the forefront for healthcare workers. And I think that it's time that healthcare workers take care of themselves, and who better to do that than a healthcare worker themselves. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, I know just after, I mean, not for me personally, but I know my dad had a lot of health issues, and we, before he passed, we were in the hospital a lot. And up until even the day he passed, like it was, nurses are amazing for what they do. You're right. Like they give so much to those patients, and and it's just, it always blew my mind. I mean, it definitely takes a special person to be able to, be in that role. And I think that, for what you're doing, what you've done, and now what you're doing as a coach, I think that's actually really awesome, because you're actually, what they've been through, this, the pains. But I'm going to get like going along with this next question. What do you find the most rewarding and most challenging about working with clients in your niche?
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that about your dad. I know we all have experiences, with family members or, even our own selves, being a patient or, getting healthcare. And so I just want to say thank you for that.
You're
Um,
welcome.
but what I find most rewarding when I'm working with clients is seeing them build up their confidence and being able to have a change or a transformation. Either, it may be in the way that they were thinking, for example, like with the nurses putting other people's needs before their own, sometimes the nurse has to take a step back and think like, okay, well, I can't do my best to take care of someone else if I'm not the best myself. So, how can I get there? And as a nurse career coach, I can help them identify strategies for them to change their old way of thinking. A lot of nurses have come back to me and said, like, oh my God, thank you so much. Just that, one little phrase helped me rethink my priorities. And it's okay to sit down, it's okay to take a drink of water, it's okay to eat my lunch uninterrupted. So yeah.
So what do you find the most challenging?
The most challenging, well, it also goes back to nurses putting their needs behind other people's needs. And I think working on that change can be challenging because it's so ingrained in us. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, I guess. There's a reward to it and a challenge to it. But sometimes, it takes time to break old habits and old frames of mind.
Oh, I'd agree with that. I think that goes um, along, I mean, in both of our, coaching businesses, because, I think that we're so used to doing things a certain way. And I know that right now, just, I help, LGBT plus professionals, land careers where they can be their authentic selves. And there's so much that's changed in the job industry, that in the job market, where people can't just spit out a resume and send it in. That doesn't work anymore. You have to have, there's so much more to that. You have to be really on top of your game on an interview. You have to be, learning how to really share yourself. There's a reason you put things that you were at a company for a certain time period, or you want to even be in that company. I'm sure it's the same way. I'm sure certain nurses, correct me if I'm wrong, they might want to work in a specific hospital. They might want to work at a specific place. I mean, I know here, just where I live, there's definitely certain hospitals I've heard good things and I've heard bad things. And I'm sure there are nurses that probably want to be in certain locations than others. Or even at a certain, the different hospital providers, how they just, it all kind of is intertwined. So, yeah, sometimes, you have to teach, we have to get back. I think, especially with nursing, I think you have to really focus on really knowing you have to be in the right space and the right, like you said, you have to be in the right space. You have to be ready to be able to help those, that patient, because if you don't have the energy, if you did, I liked how you said, you teaching someone, it's all right to sit down. I love that, because it's like, you need that rest,
Yes.
You guys are always so good about telling, patients to rest. I can't tell you how many times I heard, telling my dad, you need to rest, you need to rest. But at the, looking back, it's like, but I knew for a fact, like, those doctors and nurses both needed rest, because you guys, I mean, I know this just from talking with friends who I'm friends with here in, Colorado, that are nurses, that you guys have worked crazy long shifts in many days. And so, I mean, that rest is so key, and being on your best to give the best care that you can.
Yes.
So can you share a transformative experience with a client that really illustrated or illustrates the power of coaching?
Oh, yes. So I actually had a client session this week where we did a mock interview, and she was having a job interview the next day. And I do all my coaching sessions virtually, but she was having this interview in person. And I said, it's still the same, like I'm just in a screen, and your interviewer is in person. So, all the tips that I give you is, all the feedback is going to be still applicable. So, when we were practicing the mock interview, I noticed her responses were a little bit scattered. She wasn't, she was giving the story, but it just wasn't clear. And I gave her feedback, from the interviewer's standpoint. I was trying to understand what you were saying, but the point just wasn't coming across. And she's like, oh, okay. And I said, there's something called the STAR method, STAR, where S stands for situation, T stands for task, A stands for action, and R stands for result. So when you give your response, frame your answer using the STAR method. So we tried again. I gave her the same questions, and also a few that were just off the cuff, like, okay, let me see how she is, with thinking on her feet. And she actually did really well. And like, I gave her the feedback after. I was like, it was a complete like 180, from start to finish. I could understand her response. I could understand what actions she took. What was the results? How did she feel about it? How did the patient feel about it? And, she was like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better about my job interview. And I said, good, just remember STAR. You're a star. So just remember that. And, that's also one of the main points that I tell all my clients doing the mock interview is to remember the STAR method. I think nurses were good when it comes to telling a patient's story. For example, when we hand off to the next shift, we have to give what we call report. We're excellent about hitting, all the key body systems, telling what happens, hour by hour, kind of like a play-by-play for the entire shift. But when it comes to talking about ourselves, we kind of just are all over the place. That's a trend that I've noticed. So teaching nurses how to use a STAR method in their interview questions has really helped a lot.
That's awesome. I actually really like that. That's very smart. And I like that she probably got to see, okay, wow. Because you, like you said, you even threw extra, questions in there. And I think that's really good. Like when I've worked with my clients, I've tried to, do the mock interviews and give them questions. And it's now I'm kind of like, I need to throw some extra ones in there when I'm doing that just to make sure they're really on their feet. It is definitely different to do the last job that I held before I started my coaching business was 100% online. Like all the people that I interviewed, they were separate days, but everything was on. It really shouldn't be a difference if you're in person or not. I mean, the biggest difference, I guess, is you're fully getting clothed. You may not have a true interview outfit when you're sitting in a chair, like in how we're interviewing right now. But, I think that STAR method is awesome. It's very smart. Nice. I really like that. So how do you see the coaching industry evolving, especially for new or unconventional niches?
Yeah. So I think coaching is going to become really popular. I can really speak from the healthcare and the career point of view, but I think in today's job market and what's going on with politics nowadays, and especially post pandemic. We're seeing that job loyalty is just not a thing anymore. Like you used to see nurses that would stay in the same unit, same workplace for 20 plus years. For example, my mom, she's still working. She's 69 years old. Just had a birthday last week, actually.
Nice.
And she's still working in the same unit that she started on 40
Oh,
plus
wow.
years later. Yes. I keep telling her, Mom, maybe you should retire. But, I think, for her, working, keeps her on her toes. But you just don't find that anymore, with the majority of nurses. I think my mom is an exception to that. But, a lot of nurses are staying on their units for 2 years, if that, and then they're moving on to, either graduate school or pursuing other education, or they're looking for other opportunities, better work-life balance, something remote. So I think, the coaching space is going to really explode in the coming future. So, yeah.
Wow, that 20 compared to like 2, that's just really
Yeah,
shocking.
it
I
is.
mean,
Yeah.
it just, I feel like, wow. I mean, wow, I'm stunned. I don't even like, there's so many things going
Yeah.
through my head.
Yeah. I mean, there's other statistics that were recently put out about predictions of the job market for nurses in the future. And actually, I believe it's 1 in 3 new nurses within their first 2 years of the job quit nursing altogether. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So they're predicting by 2027, there's going to be a shortage of about 900,000 nurses in this country alone, which is just
Wow.
crazy. Just crazy.
Yeah, because we're not
Yeah.
getting any younger.
No, we are not. We are not. Yeah.
We're definitely not. So, wow, that's something to really think
Yeah.
about. Wow. So what advice would you give someone considering hiring a coach for personal or professional growth, regardless of the niche?
Yeah. So I actually recently read this book. It's called The Diary of a CEO by Stephen Bartlett. And I believe he's based in the UK. And I think at the time when he wrote the book, he was just under 30 years old, pretty much self made entrepreneur, owned several companies, and all before he was 30. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. What did he do differently? So I was intrigued and I read the book. And one of the main takeaways that I got from that as a career coach is that you are your own job security. So, you can leave an employer, you can change professions, if you don't want to be a nurse and you want to go into finance, you can certainly do that. You can move across the world, just pack up and leave everything behind. But the constant factor is you. So, you have to ask yourself, what do you bring to the table? Or, what are you learning? Are you applying that knowledge? What are your skills? What makes you stand out from another candidate? And do you invest in yourself? And I think for, people that may be considering coaching, the investment piece of it, can be scary. But I think it's important to know and understand that coaching is a tool that's going to help you, motivate you, and grow you. And you, as a client, are going to benefit from the coaching relationship. So why not?
I mean, I agree. I think that I would say you and I have definitely, just based on how we met, we know that we definitely invested in ourselves
Mm-hmm.
to better ourselves as coaches. And I think that, something that I just put out on social media today was talking about, you should invest in a coach. Athletes
Mm-hmm.
invest in coaches. They have coaches, CEOs have coaches, I mean, I can say for me personally, one of the best things I ever experienced was having a coach as an athlete,
Mhm.
because it was like something that I got to experience to get me to my best self. And I
Mhm.
know that, I mean, I would not have been anywhere near I was as
Mhm.
a 4-year letterman in high school, and being able to, be very competitive through all those competitive years of swimming. If I hadn't had a coach, I was going to be able to do that on my own. I
Mhm.
didn't know how to, do certain workouts. I didn't, and that's it. Even as something as simple, and it's kind of funny that I'm going to refer to her, but it's true. Taylor Swift just got off her massive, massive world tour. And one of the
Mhm.
things that kept her going and barely looking like she was using almost any effort was her massive workout. She had a coach that
Mhm.
was keeping her in line, and they said that she was doing workouts that like professional athletes were doing to be able
Mhm.
to keep up that stamina to go. And I think that all those Swifties out there, like I mean, if she can do it, and she knows how important that is. She had a coach doing it. She's had
Mhm.
people guide her along the way. I, outside of athletic, I've had I obviously had a coach, in the group that we were in together. So I mean, I know how important they are. And you're right. Like sometimes people don't think that the investment is, sometimes they might think it's too much, or,
Mhm.
but what are you doing? What are you doing on your own? Are you really going
Mhm.
to invest in yourself? I mean, even when
Mhm.
I got into coaching, over 4 years ago, when I dove in, said, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to learn, this is what I'm going to get certified in. Um, I kind of laugh because the investment actually was quite low. And at first I didn't dive in. I was like, well, what's the point? That's not going to,
Mhm.
and then well, things kind of happened in life, and at work, and I was like, okay, let's dive back into this. And then when I really took off with my even just my coaching business was because, well, I had turned 50. I was like, I'm in a new decade of life, and I kind of learned, like what you even just said, like it when it comes, the constant factor is you. What are you
Mhm.
doing about you? And I kind of learned that, you know what am I going to do for myself? What am I,
Mhm.
how am I going to, for me, especially now being a coach, what am I doing to better myself that I can help better my clients and make sure
Mhm.
that they're getting what they paid for? I mean,
Mhm.
let's be real. Like they're paying for the
Yeah. Yeah.
expertise. So if you're not gonna, I know there are definitely some wannabe coaches out there that don't really go through any type of, experience, any type of certification. I think when like what you're doing and what I'm doing, we're using our personal experiences. We're using what
Mhm.
we've gone through to help people, help our
Mhm.
clients, because especially in an industry that you've been in. I mean, oh my goodness, nursing is such a high um stress. Like being in a
Mhm.
hospital is a very, I mean, I can tell you personally, I am someone who hates going to the doctor.
Uh-huh.
Hates it. That I have literally, most of the time, my blood pressure is racing. Everything, is
Mhm.
so that when they take my blood pressure, they're like, is everything okay?
Yeah. Like,
And
"Do
I'm
you have a
like,
headache? Are you feeling all right?"
and it's like, no, it's that they call it what, the white coat syndrome, I think it
Mhm.
is.
Yep,
And
white
so it's
coat
just like,
syndrome.
and so for me, what I've had to do, and I have to say, it helped with coaching. It's like I had to switch that mindset. And I had to
Mhm.
sit there and go, you know what? This is for my benefit. This is going to help me. I need to make sure that I'm at the best of my abilities, obviously, unless I was like really sick or something. But
Mhm.
because you can't fake really sick if you're really sick, not being sick. But I think that when you're like, I always try to put my best foot out there as a coach, and I know that you obviously do the same thing. You were doing the same thing when you were, a nurse manager, when you're doing what in your day to day. And I think that's just, it's so important. And I think that having a coach, for me, and I think when you have a coach and I think it's a little bit better than having a family member, a spouse,
Mhm.
a friend, because they're not anyone related to you.
Mm-hmm.
So like I think, parents are always great about saying, oh, you're the most beautiful person in the world, you're the smartest, whatever. Like, okay, great, but let me have someone who doesn't know me
Mm-hmm.
really give me the insight. Now I don't want them to say stuff like that, but yeah, I mean, you have to, like, I think we as coaches sometimes are maybe a little bit more blunt that your family member is going to be, or your spouse or whoever, but just because we're seeing it from a different perspective. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
even I don't think sometimes even your coworkers or your bosses may be as blunt. Maybe sometimes they should be. I don't know. I think it depends on the situation, but I think that's kind of the advantage of having a coach, because they're really going to tell you. We're going to
Mm-hmm.
tell you what it's like. Like, I liked how you called your client out. They're like, no, what, you're crumbling pretty much. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
need to use that
Yeah.
star method. Let's use the star method. This is what it is. This is what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because, to put it bluntly, and I hate to say this, but like, if you don't do what we tell you, we know this from experience, you're probably not going to get what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Be it
Yeah.
a job, be it a promotion, be it whatever that might be. Like, and I was like, yeah. I mean, I thought it was funny. One of our friends that I interviewed recently said, finding a coach is kind of like finding like your partner. Like, you're going
Mm-hmm.
to ask you're going to ask probably deep questions and it's going to help you get to know that
Mm-hmm.
person. But at the end of the day, it's better than, probably, just your friend, your neighbor. I mean, I definitely have a
Mm-hmm.
few friends that are pretty blunt and honest and probably be blunt about certain things. But I also think that even just us as coaches, they want to see us succeed. So
Mm-hmm.
they may not
Yeah.
be completely honest. They're going to be honest to a level. And then
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be
Yeah.
like, let someone else tell you the real.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I've actually had a client tell me before she had signed on to work with me, she said that she had asked her friends, like, oh, do you think I should apply for this job? Or, hey, can you take a look at my resume? And her friends weren't in healthcare. And she just got conflicting answers from everybody. And she just didn't know, who should I listen to? Who should I trust? And then she found me. And as we were talking on our discovery call, she told me all this. And I said, well, me as a nurse manager, like, I did interviews all the time. I looked at resumes all the time. I don't even know how many I've looked at in my whole career, probably over 1,000. And, it's like, you know, I know from my work experience, like, I know what works. And, your friends and family, they may have good intentions, but, ultimately, what do you want out of this? Like, do you want to get the job? Let me help you. So yeah. I think it's interesting that you brought up that point about, friends and family. Like, yes, they do want to be supportive, but sometimes they might not serve in the best interest at that time. So
and I mean, yeah. um, Especially even just finding a job. They might know how well you've done, but in
Mhm.
your previous jobs or whatever you've been, but they're not physically with you in the job day in, day out. They're
Mhm.
not, they don't know exactly. Yeah, they probably know, you know, you're studying, how you were possibly as a student, because obviously you grew up with them. So they're going to see, my mom always jokes there were certain things that I would do, and she would joke and say that I would, if I was struggling on trying to find an answer and I couldn't, I was, studying for a test or whatever, I would like just look up, and she's like, what are you looking for? Is the answer up there? And I'm like, I'm like, no, to put it bluntly, I don't know the answer. I have no clue. So you can get that honesty from your
Mhm.
parents or, friends or whatever. But yeah, I think in the end, the coach is definitely the best way to go.
Mhm.
Um, so, all right. We were talking about this offline, and I'm excited to actually now bring these up. So we're going to have a little fun. these are some just rapid fire questions, just to have fun with. And I'm going to ask you to answer to whatever comes to your mind right away.
Okay.
So,
I feel like I should close my eyes and just
so
manifest the answer.
if you could coach any historical figure, who would it be and why?
If I could coach any historical figure, who would it be? Oh my goodness. I honestly, I don't know why I'm thinking Trump. I mean, I don't, in my content and in my coaching, I don't bring up politics or anything, but just Trump comes to mind because like I feel like he needs to work on his leadership skills, and he seems too bullish. Like he's just not taking into account like what's going on with the common person. I feel like, in my own opinion, and I feel like he just needs to listen more, and he just needs to be coached on that.
Okay.
I don't know why, like, that was the first person that came into my mind.
I was not thinking you were going to say that. So good. You shocked me. So let's give you another one. What's one daily habit that you can't live without?
Well, I do love coffee, but with my coffee, I actually sit and think about 5 things that I'm grateful for, because I believe that you should start each day with an attitude of gratitude. And it just, makes the whole day seem so much better. Even if you're having the worst day of your life, it's like, oh, okay, I'm still thankful, for me personally, like thankful I can wake up every morning and still move my arms and legs. I still may be weak, but I can still move them. I'm still thankful that, I am able to live independently and have my dogs with me. I'm still grateful that I can coach and, work from home at a pace that I can handle. And I'm just grateful to be alive. Yeah. Enjoy
Awesome.
every moment. Yeah.
That's awesome. I think that it's so important. I mean, you and I know we're both taught about so much about mindset, and
Hmm.
and I think that I agree with you. I actually, somewhere back here, there's a book on being grateful and how important it is, like a
Hmm.
daily. There's actually a few. It's a few like gratitude journals to really keep. Because I did an episode on my previous podcast talking about gratitude, and um, yeah, like you said, I mean, you get to wake up, get another
Hmm.
day of life. I mean, how awesome that
Hmm.
whatever that brings to us in that day. I love that you get to get up, you get to have your coffee, you get to spend time with your dogs, get to do what you want to do. I mean, how much better life can be? I mean, we can always wish that we were like billionaires or whatever, but great,
Hmm.
but at the end of the day, I think especially as I've gotten older, the things that I'm grateful for and what I are grateful for maybe are a little bit more meaningful now that I've thinking
Hmm.
that I've lived, a little bit longer. But I also think that um I don't dream as big as I used to, just not that I don't believe it. I'm always shooting for the
Hmm.
stars. But I don't want a mansion. I might want an
Hmm.
additional home, but like I
Yeah.
don't, I want to have something. I don't want to have to pay a staff to clean my place. I'm sorry.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
Um, I just want to be able to enjoy life and be able to
Hmm.
be like for me living here in Colorado, I would love to have a house in the mountains, that can be able to go to and just chill and relax. And it's going to sound funny to say this, but I don't want it being in the wintertime. I'd rather go in the
Hmm.
summer, because summers in the mountains are just amazing. I
Hmm.
think they're almost better than the winters. But I know there's people out there probably disagree with me, but I was a big skier back when I was younger, and I had someone ask me the other day, "Oh, why didn't you do it anymore?" I said, "Because I don't want to fall. It hurts. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
it hurts a
Protect your
lot
knees.
more. It hurts a lot more as an adult compared to as a kid. Like I was a little rebel when I was skiing and when I was younger, but yeah, no, like it. Yeah, your
Mhm.
knees. Oh my goodness. I mean, from when I started skiing to when I stopped skiing, my still to this day least favorite thing to do were the moguls, and they were
Uh-huh.
hard on your knees, and I know they're hard on your knees in general. But the people that keep doing them, and when I've watched them in like the Winter Olympics, and I'm like, bless you for doing that. I don't know how you do that, and you're probably not going to be able to walk in about 5 years because your knees are going to be so messed up from that constant twisting. Um, but anyway, um, yeah, yeah. Okay, I had one more question. If you had to describe your coaching style in 3 words, what would they be?
Ooh, my coaching style in 3 words. Well, I would say motivating. Um, I definitely want to be your cheerleader. And I think it's funny because I used to be a nurse manager, but my staff would tell me all the time, they're like, oh, like I feel comfortable talking to you. Like, we're not afraid of you. And I'm like, good, you shouldn't be afraid of me. I'm here to support you. Like,
Yeah,
yes, if there were things that, I had to talk to them about or discipline them on that, wasn't a good thing, then
yeah.
yes, I would have to flip into that. But I think in my nature, I'm a pretty caring and understanding person. I hope so. um, yeah, so I would say motivating. I would say also less stressful. I don't want to put any more stress on a nurse whatsoever. Just even, thinking about changing jobs or oh my God, I have an interview coming. I don't even know. Oh my God. I haven't done an interview in 20 years. I don't want to add any more stress to that. So I'm pretty, I would say easygoing, but I will still be your coach. And the third word, hmm, I would say maybe also personalized, because each client has their own journey. Um, your career path may be completely different than another nurse's career path. And, I can still work with you on that. I look at, what are your needs? What are your goals? What are your wants? And let's develop a personalized plan to get you there. So, yeah.
Nice. I'm right there with you on the personalization. I think that like all of our clients, everybody's different and each
Hmm.
path is different. And I think that with me doing career coaching as well, I think sometimes people, I brought it up a little bit ago, mindset. Sometimes it's the mindset that they really need help with. Sometimes even with doing the mock interviews, they might even need more help on the interviews
Hmm.
just to make sure that confidence is there, that being able to sell themselves, to be able to give examples of their work and why they are the most qualified for the job they're applying for. Um, so yeah, I'm right there. Like, and it's funny you say that about the easy to talk to because that's why one of my friends actually suggested years ago me getting into podcasting is that I was easy to
Hmm.
talk to, but I also had um, which is funny because I literally hate hearing my voice. But but they
I
said
do too.
but they said it was great listening to you. You had a great message. You had something, to say.
Hmm.
And I think that I'm a great listener. I would say I'm a great listener. Some might disagree.
Hmm.
Family, you don't count. Um, or my partner. Um, but I think that being a great listener, being easy to talk to, for me personally, and then I think the personalization makes it why we get to do what we do. It's different than anyone else. Like, and I think having that personalized touch is what makes coaches so unique. And not
Mm-hmm.
everyone does personalization. I do have my base outline, within a coaching session, but then I have, in through, like you mentioned, or like a discovery call or a consultation, like, that we're really getting to know that person so that we know
Mm-hmm.
that the personalization is going to help them even more. Like if we can really target them and what
Mm-hmm.
their needs are. So, um, huge. So I have learned so much. I am, like I said at the beginning, I'm so thankful for what you've done just alone as a nurse and just in the field of nursing. Like nurses saved our family a lot of stress from dealing, because my dad was a
Mm-hmm.
doctor. So, and
Mm-hmm.
you probably would agree with this, and I am fine with saying this. Doctors are the worst patients. They hands down
Oh,
are.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, we had we had a few situations. I wouldn't say many. We had a few situations where we literally had to stop my dad in mid sentence and like, can you please let the nurses tell us? You
Mm-hmm.
studied this. You went to school for this. We don't know
Yeah.
this. I'm
Yeah.
doing a podcast. Like, I don't know this information. So yeah, I think that what you're doing is awesome. I think it's great. I have another friend of mine who unfortunately doesn't live in our in Denver anymore. I was in a choir with him. He now lives up in the Seattle area, but he helps nurses,
Mm-hmm.
like kind of in the same, kind of similar to what you do. He's a coach as well, career coach, and he saw the same thing like you did. Like, why shouldn't I be helping these, people, my own people? Why should I be helping
Mm-hmm.
them be their better selves, to be, that the best that they can be, and not be insanely stressed out and hopefully not last that 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So that's so
Yeah.
scary. Oh my goodness. Um, but and I learned that STAR method is amazing. I think that's great. Thank you for sharing about that. That's incredible. So I'm so thankful you're on today to come on. Thank you again. I really appreciate it, Kristen. So what, one last question before we hop off. What is one key piece of advice or a tip that you would leave for our listeners today?
Ooh. Hmm. One key piece of advice. It could be about anything.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Um, I would say just be you. Be honest to you. Um, you know, I, having worked in healthcare for how many years and then going through my own health journey, and now I'm living with a disability. Um, you know, it's kind of interesting to see, like how my own perspectives have changed. And um like I worked a lot with stroke patients, and they have to, once they have a stroke, it's sometimes could be pretty devastating. Some do recover, but most may also have a disability. And working with them as a nurse, I just didn't have that perspective. But then when I became a patient of my own, I gained a totally new perspective. And I was like, wow, managing like my own health and navigating the healthcare system is scary. And, I was just like, oh my God, okay, what do we do now? Like, I feel like I should know this, but I don't. And, all that being said, like, now that I, do have a disability, I actually embrace it. I, don't try to hide it. Like if, um, I'm walking around the street and I wear these leg braces, I think they're actually pretty cool. But other people that I know have the same braces, they're like, oh, these things are so annoying. I'm like, oh, they're actually pretty cool. Like, like I don't know. Sometimes I jazz them up, like I'll put stickers on them or whatever. But
Oh, very nice.
like I embrace that about myself. And I think it also inspires other people to be like, oh, wow, like she's walking down the street looking like a model, like, and, like at one point in my life, I couldn't even walk 50 feet. And now with the help of these braces, I can. And that's just a part of my life now going forward. And
Mhm.
I learned to embrace that. So I think, just learning to embrace who you are and, as long as you love yourself and, you do just do you, you know, everything will be great.
I
Yeah,
love
I think
that.
that's my advice.
I mean, you're not wrong. I think it's so important. You be you. I mean, embrace
Mhm.
yourself. I mean, it's why I'm doing what I want people, I encourage my clients, to be their authentic selves at work. How hard
Mhm.
it's so funny to me, little tangent, but it's just I don't understand why that's so hard. And I understand we have
Mhm.
different work environments, and I mean I get it. But again, I think it's with age. I've just kind of like, if people don't like me, or if I can't be my authentic self, then I'm probably not in the right spot.
Mhm.
So I thank you again so much. So today, listeners, what you need to do, if you enjoyed today, which I hope you did, I know I did, hit that follow or subscribe button, so you never miss out on an episode. I have many, many, many interviews coming up with some awesome people. Some of them I've known for a little bit. Others are going to be brand new, so it's going to be fun. But if today's message lit a fire in you, share this with someone who needs to hear it. And especially if I'm going to tout my friend Kristen right here. If you know a nurse that's struggling, that needs, trying to find, a better, fit, in the nursing world, you can find my friend Kristen's socials. I'm going to say them right now, but you can find her on Instagram at nurse.potential. I personally follow her and I love her content. I think it's awesome. And we're in completely different spectrums, but we're both in career coaching, but I love seeing her content. You can find her on LinkedIn, KMGUTIERR. You can also go to www. Wow, that was hard to say. www.nurse-potential.com. And I will put those all in the show notes, so you can click on those as well there. I personally, it's kind of funny that we talked about this, but I've developed a coaching program that's tailored to meet my clients' needs, each personalizing them, just like we talked a little bit about earlier. And so I understand the importance of not just finding a job, but finding a workplace where you're valued for who you truly are. So if you want to know a little bit more about me and what I do, you can find me on LinkedIn at Jonathan M. Barbie, or on Instagram and TikTok at JMB Coaching LLC. I want to thank you again. Thank you very much, Kristen. Thank you, listeners, for joining us on Empowered and Out. I hope today's episode, left you feeling inspired and ready to take your career to the next level as your authentic self. Remember, every step you take towards owning your story and your goals is a step towards a more fulfilling, powerful future. Thank you again to my guest, Kristen Gutierrez, and the insight you provided to our listeners.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you're looking more guidance, like I said, definitely in your career journey, you can reach out to either Kristen and I, depending on what your, field is. But until next time, showing up, keep owning your path, and remember, you deserve a career where you can truly be yourself. Stay proud, stay empowered, and we'll see you back here soon.